Hey everyone, this is Shreyas and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing this particular monitor. This is called the G24-20. This is basically a 24-inch 1080p monitor. The highlights of this particular monitor are pretty interesting. A few years ago, fast IPS monitors were very rare, or if they did exist, they were extremely costly. So that has been changing lately, and that's why we have this particular product in a very great price. Mostly in Amazon, I've seen this particular monitor retail around or under 20,000, which I think is a fair asking price for this particular monitor, and you'll know why in the course of this particular review. If you're interested in such PC content, make sure to like this particular video, and why don't you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any other such video. So with that said, this is Shreyas and let's check that out. So I want to begin with whatever comes in the box. So in particular, in the review unit I received, I got the monitor. Obviously, the stand is included in the box. You get the power cable, and I got a HDMI cable only. Installation of this particular monitor is pretty simple. It's mostly toolless, but you could need some. For example, the base attaches with a thumb screw only, which is not a problem at all. It's a D-ring, so you can do it with your hand, and it's tight enough and it's very sturdy. Now the stand to the monitor or the panel itself is something that you have thumb screws. You have to put in 4 screws, and given the measurements, I believe it is VESA compatible as well. So if you have a monitor arm of your own with VESA 100 by 100 measurements, you can definitely install it on that. Now the thumb screws is what I did not feel very confident about, so I screwed them in myself. So that's why I said it could be toolless, but maybe isn't. But that's the only part where you might need your screwdriver. Now moving on, let's move to the design. Now overall, obviously you have some blue accents on the base of the stand, which makes sure that you know that it is a gaming monitor. Apart from that, it is a flat display and it has very thin bezels all around. Only the bottom chin is kind of thick. It has a Lenovo branding over here and a power indicator on the right hand side so that you know when it's turned on. Apart from that, the stand is something that offers pretty much a lot of flexibility. Now, 2 things you cannot do. You cannot turn this around into portrait mode, and there is no swivel function on the stand. It is fixed that way, but you can tilt it up and down. So you have some flexibility there, and the vertical movement is a lot. So you can see this is the highest it can go, and this is as low as it can go. It is very close to the ground. It's almost like less than 2 inches close to the base of the stand. So you have height adjustability to a large extent, and that's something you might appreciate given your setup. The stand is pretty sturdy. There is a very slight wobble. It's not a concern when you're gaming on your desk or something. Nothing from the desk will make your monitor wobble. And apart from that, there is a small attachment for probably cable management. You can be using it. It's not something that will conceal your cables, but it will just make it easier to arrange it at the back of the stand along the stand. Another design thing which I really appreciate is that there is no power adapter which comes with it. So the power system is so you directly plug in the power cable into the monitor, and that's it. So you don't have to manage another power adapter per se. So that's something I really appreciate, since the power system is within the body of the panel itself. Now let's move on to the ports that are provided in this particular monitor. Now you have 2 HDMI 2 ports because it is a 1080p panel, and the highest refresh rate which goes on this is 165 Hz. So that's enough for HDMI 2.0, and you have a display port 1.4 as well. Not just that, you have obviously a power input over there, a Kensington log, and an audio jack as well. Now honestly, I think that it's good enough, but personally, because of my personal monitor which has spoiled me with a USB hub as well, because that is an easy way to connect my mouse and keyboard which I'm gaming with. So that's something that I found missing, but given that this is smaller in size, the space constraints come in, so maybe that's why they omitted it in this. Now let's quickly glance over the specs of this. Now as I started my video, I mentioned that this is an IPS panel and it is 165 Hz. So that's a fast IPS panel. Now these have become relatively cheaper and affordable. Although this is a 24-inch size, but I feel for 1080p resolution, 24 inches is perfect, because I have a 27-inch 1080p monitor and I feel the pixel density is not as much. I would prefer 1440p on my 27-inch monitor, but yeah, for 1080p on 24 inches, it's perfect according to me. It has AMD FreeSync as well, so screen tearing should not be visible, and AMD FreeSync and G-Sync compatibility is something which works both way around, so even if you have a NVIDIA GPU, it shouldn't be a problem. I ran it with my PC having a G2070 Super and I got AMD FreeSync working very well. I did not observe any screen tearing myself as well, which is a very good news. Now another thing is even the pixel response time is claimed to be very fast, which is around 1 millisecond. So when you do the UFO test, I observed some amount of blurring, but then you have some overdrive modes too as well, which do not show that much of overshoot. So that's something you can use. I personally like the second level of it because on 3 and 4 levels you see overshoot as well. Not just that, when you turn on these particular modes on level 4, I believe it has backlight strobing as well, which helps increase the response time a lot. But what that does is reduce the brightness considerably, and you cannot use AMD FreeSync with backlight strobing side by side. So that's something you should keep in mind before purchasing this monitor for competitive gaming. Apart from that, my gaming experience has been very good because the brightness of this panel is also amply good. Not just that, the IPS display helps in better color reproduction. Now I do not have any qualitative ways of measuring the color accuracy of it, but next to my VA panel, which is my AORS CV27F, I found the colors to be way better, and the viewing angles on this is really amazing. Now that is a stark difference I observed with my VA panel, and that's something I really appreciate about IPS panels. And the brightness overall is pretty good. I think it is over 400 nits, and that's something I appreciate because next to my HDR 400 monitor, this was slightly brighter in certain scenarios which I observed. Now this is again without backlight strobing because that will turn down your brightness a bit. Now the next thing is that it has kind of an HDR toggle. So when you go into Windows, so let me just show you. When you go into your display settings and you go to about HDR, when you select about your external monitor, which I have here, you do not really have support for something like HDR, but then you have an option to go into the monitor and set it up. In that case, I did not really like it much because there was some color anomaly going on. So around some colors you saw some pixelations and the color depth was not as good. So I will tell you not to expect any good HDR performance from it, but for HDR content the brightness is pretty good, and that's something I really appreciated about this particular monitor. Now for gaming, I personally enjoyed it. As I said, the pixel density is something that I personally liked. On a 1080p resolution on a 24-inch monitor is something that I prefer personally. Also, one thing more I appreciate about this, that it is flat. But again, it has 165Hz, which is ample in my experience for having a good gaming experience. Now the rest depends on what GPU you have to drive high FPS on this particular monitor, but apart from that, I have no complaints. Now the next thing about the colors, as I stated, the IPS panel color reproduction is really good, and I did try to edit a few videos on this. I honestly enjoyed it better because there is zero distortion as it is a flat panel. Not just that, the color reproduction and the saturation levels are very good on this. It's not oversaturated because I felt some colors on my VA panel back there is oversaturated. So that's something I personally appreciate about IPS panels, and I will definitely consider it myself for my next monitor. The sRGB coverage is over 100% and the DCI-P3 coverage is around 90% or more. So you do have the color gamut. Now the accuracy is something that I cannot measure and tell you, but I can definitely tell you that the benefits of IPS displays are definitely seen here clearly. So who is this monitor for? Now if you're someone who does make videos like me on YouTube, or does any production work, or even does photo editing, also does game in your spare time, or vice versa, whatever you like, this is a good choice for you. The good news is that it is around $150 or under 20,000 rupees. Now that's a good thing. I think the price is pretty decent. The main selling point of this is the high refresh rate which you get on an IPS display, and that's something which is still not as common, because although we have seen a lot of TN displays get out of the industry, at least in this particular price range, VA panels are taking over relatively because they have good response times, they have more contrast. So sometimes content looks good on it because the contrast ratio is higher over there. But overall, for creative work and a balance between work and play, this could be a good monitor choice for you. So let me know how you found this particular video. Make sure to comment down below if you have any further questions. Thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next video.